Today we have a newly refreshed Volvo XC90. In this video, I'll talk about what the changes are, how I feel about the interior space, and what it's like to drive it.
What's going on now? Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I let go? I do really want to know what's going on now. Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I say so? We're just putting on a show.
Now, it's crazy to think that when the second generation XC90 debuted in 2014, I was going into my freshman year of college and was still living in my parents' basement. Fast forward 10 years, I moved out of my parents' house, graduated from college, and even got married. But guess what? The second generation XC90 is still with us and it's still going strong. See, one thing about Volvo is they like keeping their models for a while and they make constant changes over the years. And that's exactly what happened with the XC90. And guess what? Clients seem to like that because there are times when the car sells as well towards the end of the production as it did in the beginning. So let's talk about our today's hero, the 2025.5 Volvo XC90. I think it's safe to say that from a pure styling perspective, the XC90 has aged gracefully thanks to its classic, simple design, and the changes are rather small. We received new grille and headlights, new taillights, updated color and wheel options, and a redesigned cabin. There are also some mechanical changes, however, the underlining remained the same. The XC90 still sits on Volvo's SPA 1 platform, which dates back to 2014 and was designed with hybridization or electrification in mind. More on that in a second. It features a double wishbone front suspension and a multi-link setup in the back, combined with either non-adaptive dual flow dampers or an optional air suspension with adaptive dampers, which can get stiffer or softer depending on the drive mode you're in. Now, we have three trim levels to choose from: Core, Plus, and Ultra, with Ultra being a basically fully loaded model and what comes with that, the most expensive one starting at around $68,000. As of powertrain, we have three different options that can be split into two buckets: mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid. One thing that always remains the same is a 2-liter turbocharged four-cylinder that sits under the hood and an 8-speed automatic transmission. Mild hybrids have a 48-volt system that has a small lithium-ion battery and an integrated starter generator for smoother auto start-stop system and increased fuel efficiency. There are two variants, a 247 horsepower B5 and a 295 horsepower B6. The plug-in hybrid T8 that we're testing today is also the most powerful version of the XC90, pushing out 455 horsepower. So in the T8, in addition to the internal combustion engine, there is a 145 horsepower electric motor that's mounted on the rear axle with a 18.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which gives you around 32 miles of electric-only range. Fully charging the car at home should take around 5 hours. All-wheel drive is standard. Mild hybrids get an on-demand Haldex-based unit. In case of the plug-in hybrid model, there is no physical drive shaft, the front axle is powered by the internal combustion engine, and the rear axle is driven by the electric motor. Now, before we talk what it's like to drive the new XC90, let's take a look inside and talk about the interior space. Okay, inside the refreshed XC90. Now, if you've sat in or driven any of the new Volvos, you'll feel right at home here. While the dashboard has been redesigned, it still has that clean, cohesive and cozy design that we all love in Volvos. Not only does it look modern and minimalistic, but it's also undeniably elegant. The fact that this design has been around for almost a decade only proves that if you don't overcomplicate things, they will age gracefully, and that's the thing about current Volvo's design language, both inside and out. On the inside, the attention to detail is outstanding. You'll find a good mix of high-quality materials like leather, soft plastics, aluminum, or even glass in case of the shifter. Everything here is very well put together, giving you that sense of solidity, and to this day, this is one of the best, if not the best interior in the segment of luxury midsize SUVs from the quality standpoint. The storage is also pretty good overall. The center console is more usable compared to the pre-facelift model, the door pockets are practical, and the trunk offers tons of space, especially when you fold all the seats down. Now, technology has historically been a weak point for Volvo, especially the Android automotive-based infotainment system, which has received its fair share of criticism over the years, but thankfully its newest iteration works well and it is a step in the right direction. The screen, besides the fact that it looks like an afterthought, has a high resolution and features simple, clean interface. Now, learning it, just like with most units, might take you some time, and the fact that crucial features like climate control, drive modes, or even dimmer are buried in the menus isn't ideal. I mean, for a brand that emphasizes safety, this design choice is a little bit questionable. The digital gauge cluster, maybe it's not the most customizable one, but it displays all the information you need, such as the trip computer or a navigation map. We also have a head-up display. Lastly, the Bowers & Wilkins sound system. It was a highlight 10 years ago when it first came out and still is today. It delivers an unbelievable sound quality, offers multiple DSP modes, and I find myself just sitting in this car sometimes and listening to music. Now, one area where Volvo consistently excels in is seat design, and the front seats are simply amazing. They offer superior comfort and wide range of adjustments. They're obviously heated, cooled, and have massage and top trims. Trust me, you can drive this car for hours and finish your trip feeling fresh and fatigue-free. Moving to the back, you can choose between a bench or captain's chairs in the second row. 2 full-size adults or a child's seat should have no issues fitting back there. Plus, you get climate vents, climate control, and a couple of USB-C charging ports so you can charge your kids' tablets. The third row is standard in the XC90, and while I don't see it being super comfortable for adults, kids should be fine. Unless you want to just punish someone, just let them sit back there. Anyways, that was the cabin of the refreshed XC90, so let's get it on the road now and see how it drives. Okay, driving the refreshed XC90. So this generation has been with us for a little over 10 years, but despite that, it's not the same car that it once was when it was presented in 2014. Over the years, Volvo made some significant updates to the car, changed a lot of things, and the way it is right now, it's almost perfect. And almost is a key word because there's one thing that I still think needs improvement, but we're gonna talk about that in a second. First, let's talk about driving dynamics. We can put the powertrain in power mode, where the system uses both internal combustion engine and the electric motor on the rear axle. Battery usage, let's leave it in auto so the car knows what's best for it. We can floor it, and it's quick in a good way. It delivers power in a very linear way. You don't get hit with all that torque that the car offers, but it has a lot of that passing power that's useful. And you know what? Even from a red light, you may surprise some kids in their BMW's 330i's. As we go through corners, despite the suspension lowering itself and dampers stiffening up in the power mode, there is still a good amount of body roll. The car doesn't really like to be driven aggressively, and it shouldn't be. It's a Volvo, it's not a Polestar engineered model. We cannot feel anything on the steering wheel. There is basically zero feedback, but the brakes were okay. I really like how Volvo calibrates their braking systems in their plug-in hybrids. We're talking about regular pads on rotors and some region braking, but this is very seamless. I can just enter this corner a little faster. The car stays somewhat planted, but like I said, good amount of body roll. It's stable. If traction and stability control need to kick in, they will, to kind of tell you that, all right, dude, that's it, don't do this. But yeah, driving this thing is pleasant. I can go through those corners very nicely. But if you really want your family-oriented mid-sized SUV to drive well, you have to check out the BMW X5. All right, enough of that. Let's go back into hybrid mode, where the car is gonna decide itself whether it's best to use the engine or the electric motor. We have 3 different modes for our battery use. So automatic, the car is gonna determine itself when it's time to kick in the engine, when it's time to use the motor. Hold, which kind of limits the usage of your electric motor. The car is gonna prioritize using internal combustion engine. That's good if you wanna save some energy. If, for example, you need to enter to a clean zone where, only electric vehicles are allowed. Charge, also, you're on a highway, you're gonna need that electricity down the line, so you can make the internal combustion engine charge the battery and, provide you some power. Let's go back into automatic mode. We also have 1 pedal drive. If we flip the gear switch and B icon shows up, we can noticeably tell that when you lift up the accelerator, the car slows down, but it also works very smoothly, and you can very easily get used to that to kind of maximize driving your plug-in hybrid and recover some energy. So what's good and what's bad? First of all, the powertrain massively improved. The The four-cylinder has enough power, it works very smoothly, works very well with the hybrid powertrain or with the electric motors, so the computer really knows when to use which unit, and when the engine has to kick in, it does it very smoothly, seamlessly. There were times when I didn't even realize that the engine was on, because that's how well this four-cylinder is isolated. It also produces very nice warm tone. It's not annoying, rattly four-cylinder like in some Lexus products. This is on another level when it comes to refinement. Now, the biggest issue that I have with this XC90 is suspension tuning. It's softly tuned, it absorbs road imperfections, but when we hit sharp bumps like we just did, there's a lot of vibration that's coming inside the cabin, and I really was hoping that Volvo would address that. Now, the cars that don't get adaptive dampers, that get passive dampers, they have new dual flow damper design, which should fix that problem. I haven't driven a car with those dampers yet, so I cannot tell, but in this top trim, which should be the most luxury-oriented, air springs, adaptive dampers, well, there is still pretty bad impact management whenever we hit any potholes or those sharp high frequency imperfections. You know, you can feel that the whole body structure gets upset. So that's one area that still requires improvement. I don't know if they're gonna bother doing that or not, but I hope they do, because if we compare it to an MDX, to Lexus RX, X5, GLE, all of those cars just ride better. As long as the pavement is smooth, we're good. We're chilling. We're very happy how the suspension works. But hitting those impacts is pretty annoying, and it's not a deal breaker. It doesn't eliminate the car, but you know, we're talking about an $80,000 SUV here. What's really good though is cabin isolation. We have active noise cancellation, laminated all windows around the car, and you can be doing very fast speeds and don't even realize that. So yeah, from a comfort perspective, you know, how you feel inside the cabin with your visibility, all the safety systems, this thing is amazing. It feels like a real luxury product. We have amazing Bowers & Wilkins sound system, and you can just eat up miles and go on long journeys feeling relaxed. Also, the seats are fantastic. That's your typical Volvo. You can do hours and hours sitting in them and you'll not feel fatigued whatsoever. So yeah, overall, step in the right direction. I really like what Volvo did with here. They updated the powertrain, everything works very nicely, but the suspension, at least the adaptive suspension, still needs improvement. So with that, let's head into the final thoughts and summarize this thing. Okay, summing up the refreshed Volvo XC90. Now, despite its age, it's still one of the best SUVs in the segment and offers everything that you want in your family midsize SUV. It's super comfortable, it's safe, it's practical, and the only flaw that I can think of is that rough ride quality that isn't terrible, but if you compare the XC90 to an X5, MDX, GLE, or a Q7, well, you will not be as happy with its ride comfort as you would be in any of its rivals. Also, the reliability might be a little questionable. Let me put it this way. I've owned a 2020 Volvo XC60 for the past 5 years, and I put around 50,000 miles on it. And shockingly, I haven't had any issues. The only reason why I'm bringing this up is because the XC60 and XC90 share the same platform, use many similar components, so from a reliability perspective, this is something that you want to keep in mind. The only issue that I really had was brakes, and they just wear prematurely. That's a known issue with all the Volvos, and the company, instead of re-engineering their braking system, well, they just replace pads and rotors under warranty, and once that's over, well, you have to pay out of pocket. But overall, I am super happy with it, and I think you're also going to be with the XC90. If you have any questions, drop a comment. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later.